Let's look at the Haftorah a little bit. In the Blue Book, I think it's 1146, Avi. So again, we are going to read Yeshayahu, and the Sfardim will read Yirmiyahu, and we'll try to understand why. Can we all get along? Can we be on the same page? So what does the first pasuk say? Yeshayahu 27. Days are coming, right? When Yaakov will take root, Israel will bud and flourish, and fill the face of the earth with delicious fruit. Current events. You go to Machne Yehuda, right? Gershom Shuk Machne Yehuda, you see all the delicious fruit from all over the world that is bursting, right? With color and taste and how luscious it is. So Yeshayahu predicted this thousands of years ago. You just have to go to Machne Yehuda to see this prophecy fulfilled. And we are flourishing and taking root. We are the startup nation. Right? In front of our very eyes, this prophecy is coming true. We export fruit, high-tech, low-tech, all over the world. We're the leader in medicine, and we're the leader of what? Of military exports. Everything is Israel. And Yeshayahu predicted this thousands of years ago. So this is the Haftorah that we're going to read. How does it tie in with what? With Parsha. Well, the Parsha speaks about what? The first Geula, right? The Geula Mitzrayim. Isaiah 27 speaks about what? The final Geula. So Ashkenazim chose this Haftorah. The Parsha Shemot speaks about the first Geula, the redemption from Egypt, and Isaiah 27 speaks about the final Geula, Mashiach. So we focus on what? Geula the Geula, right, Gershom? The first Geula is in the Parsha, and the Haftorah speaks about the final Geula. He's predicting the Messianic era, and one of the signs of the Messianic era is that Israel is going to what? Burst forth and sprout and export everything all over the world. And we are living, so this is one of the signs that the Mashiach is coming, this Haftorah, which Yeshayahu said thousands of years ago. So Ashkenazim chose the theme of what? Of Geula, of redemption. The first redemption in Mitzrayim, in the Parsha, the final redemption of the Haftorah. The Sfardim, they went with Yirmiyahu. I don't know if you have it. They went with Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu, he speaks about what? The Churban. He speaks about the Churban. So the Sfardim, they went, well, the Parsha does speak about slavery. The Parsha that we begin speaks about slavery and destruction. And the Yirmiyahu speaks about the destruction of what? Of the first temple. So we chose, Ashkenazim chose Geula theme, and the Sfardim, they went, hello, welcome. And the Sfardim went with the theme of slavery. So which theme do we choose, Reb Nachum? Do we focus on Churban or focus on Geula? Take your choice. Do you want Isaiah or do you want Jeremiah? Right? So it looks like Ashkenaz are more optimistic. If we go with the Haftorah that speaks about the final redemption, the Sfardim picked the theme of Yirmiyahu, which speaks about what? Which speaks about Churban and degradation. But even Yirmiyahu ends on a high note. Even Yirmiyahu ends on a high note. That the Yirmiyahu that we're going to read ends with the beautiful pasuk. Zacharti lo chesed norayich havas kelasoyich lechtech achra b'midbar. After all of the prophecy of doom and gloom that Yirmiyahu speaks about, the Churban is coming. Yet, the prophet sums up Jeremiah 2. God says, I remember the loving kindness you did when you were my young Kala, when you followed me in the wilderness. You didn't ask me where you're taking me. So that's what God remembers. After all of the punishment and all of the quarrels and the Churban, God says, I can't stop loving you. I remember the chesed when you were my young Kala. So the first Geula from Mitzrayim, Churban, redemption. But Yirmiyahu also speaks about it. Even after the Churban, there will be redemption because God's love for us is never ending. God says, I can't forget when you were my young Kala. So my Rebbe Rapam Zatzal would say that this is God's wedding album. That when all couples, under the chuppah, everything is starry-eyed and lovey-dovey, but it can't be that way because couples are going to fight after the wedding.
They're not going to fight, they may disagree.
Okay, they disagree. So when you're having hard times, you're supposed to take out your wedding album, my Rebbe said, because God showed us the way. After all the hard times we gave God and all the quarrels we had with Him and all the punishment, what does God focus on? The wedding album. God says, remember how happy we were when we were a young couple? So focus on the positive. So Yirmiyahu ends with God's wedding album. Right? That whatever happens, we are always, us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are inseparable besides the arguments and besides what? The quarrels. You focus on the positive. When you love each other unconditionally, despite the hard times, and who doesn't have hard times? Every marriage has hard times because men and women are opposite personalities. God says, focus on the lovey-dovey times. Under the chuppah gersh. Remember it was lovey-dovey? It ain't always going to be like that, but take out the wedding album when you feel like having a fight, or after a fight. And this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed us the way. Now, we know that the Haftorah speaks to current events. There's been rocket fire. There's been over 50 rockets shot this past month. The news covers it up. The news covers up. But the Haftorah, Yirmiyahu says that the Jewish people are going to be under attack. Mitzafan tipatach hara. Where is Tzafan? That's Hezbollah. The rockets are coming from Hezbollah, from the Safan, even though they're being shot where? From Gaza, but the IDF intelligence says they're coming Mitzafon. Who's in Tzafon? Hezbollah. Jeremiah and the Haftorah, current events. The Haftorah, the Sprecher I'm going to read. Hashem Omer Elai Mitzafain Tipatach Hara. That the evil attacks will come from the north, and Hezbollah is our neighbor to the north. And again, over 50 rockets have fallen, have been shot, and the IDF, unfortunately, is just bombing empty buildings. I don't know why, but again, everything is in the Torah, and we have a glorious future ahead of us, and the signs are all here, as both Isaiah and Yirmiyahu speak about in the Haftorah. Now let's take a look at the Parsha and see some current events in the Parsha. The Parsha is Shemot. We begin a new book, Ve'ele Shemot. There's a couple of art school books there. Ve'ele Shemot. The Parsha begins with the names of the Jewish people. The Torah lists who they are. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Exodus 1:1, Shemot 1:1. So Rashi wonders, we know who you are. We've been following the story. We know Jacob's sons, they went down to Mitzrayim. So why is it necessary, the Torah, to repeat in Shemot 1:1 and 2 and 3, all the names of the children of Yaakov who are in Egypt? We know they were there. We've been following Parshas Vaychi, Miketz, Vayeshev. Why repeat again? So Rashi says something incredible. Even though the Torah counts them when they're alive, in Genesis they're alive, right? The Torah counts them again. In the book of Exodus, the sons of Jacob are all dead. So Rashi says something amazing. To teach how God loves the Jewish people. You might think when Reuven died, he stopped being Reuven. And when Levi died, he stopped being Levi, and etc. When a person dies, he stops being who he is. So the Torah is saying, even after they died, Reuven continues to be Reuven. Shimon, Levi, etc., they continue to exist who they are. Even when a person dies, he doesn't stop being who he is. So therefore the Torah, to point that out, mentions the sons of Jacob, even though they're dead already, they continue to be who they are, because only the body dies. The soul, the personality, the identity, Reuven, Shimon, you remain who you are even after death. And Rashi says, we are compared to the stars. We all shine on. How to get that in? Like the stars. The Jewish people are like the stars. Perhaps that's why the Jews invented Hollywood. We're all stars. Rashi quotes the pasuk in Isaiah that the Jewish people are compared to all stars. And just like the stars shine forever, a Jewish person, even after he dies, he shines forever. Where? Where do the stars shine? Where? In heaven. So when a person dies, he becomes a star. And we shine forever, and therefore the Torah repeats the names of the sons of Jacob even after they what? Even after they die. That every Jew is a precious star to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we all have a unique tafkid, just like each star has a mission, every Jewish soul has a mission. Now, if you look at Pasuk Hey, the English doesn't have it right, Goldie. Shemot 1, Pasuk 5. You see that? You want to read that in English, maybe? Shemot 1, Pasuk 5. You have it?
And all the persons who emerged from Jacob's loins were 70 souls.
70 souls, right? That doesn't say that in the Hebrew. Let's learn a little bit of Hebrew here. See this? Why can't they get it right? Vahi kol nefesh yotze yerach Yaakov. It was all the souls that came out from Yaakov. Shivim nefesh. It should have said Shivim nefoshot. Exodus 1, Pasuk 5. It should have said Shivim, God knows Hebrew, right? It should have said Shivim nefoshot. Nefesh is one, right, Golda? So you have Shivim, it should have said what? Shivim nefoshot. How come it says Shivim nefesh? Nefesh is one. Ulpan 103. What's the message? Shivim nefesh. It should have said Shivim nefoshot. What's the answer?
In the Rashi?
Rashi doesn't deal with it. Does he deal with it? Rashi doesn't deal with it. Why it says nefesh and not nefoshot? Nefesh is for one.
Because we're all one neshama.
Beautiful, Gershom.
It says here, just as a combination of stars forms the constellation,
Go ahead.
so too the combination of people forms a tribe.
Okay.
And the combination of tribes creates the nation.
But still, why is it written in the singular when it says 70? 70 should be nefashot. So the answer, Gershom said, there's a pasuk in Parsha Azinu, Ki chelek Hashem amo. We're all a piece of the rock. Even though we're individual souls, we all come from the soul. I'm a soul, man. All of us are part of the Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. We are all the candle of God. You have one candle, you can light 1,000,000 candles from that one candle. Will that candle be reduced? Diminished? Will it? Lighting candle. We're all God's candle. We're all part of God's nefesh. We're all a piece of the rock. And therefore, it's written nefesh in the singular and not nefoshot. We have to know that. Ki chelek Hashem amo. Parsha Azinu says that we are all a piece of the rock. We all have a part of God inside of us, the godly soul. Therefore, we all shine on. Just like the stars shine at night, we shine even when it's night and it's dark. The grave is dark. But we continue to shine on. Starry, starry night. Now, how many plagues were there? People say 10, right, Professor Chaya? But I think there's 11. Look at Pasuk Chet. Look at Pasuk Chet. Exodus 1:8. A new king arose that didn't know Joseph. What do you mean he didn't know Joseph? Who saved Egypt from starvation? Who saved the Egyptian economy? Alan Greenspan, Robert Rubin, Janet Yellen. Who saved? Yosef. What do you mean he didn't know Yosef?
He didn't want to.
Professor, I think that's the 11th plague. They suffered from national amnesia.
They didn't want to know.
Ah, it was national amnesia. I think that's what it is. Egypt's 11th plague. Ingratitude. Who's Joseph? Right?
Me.
Oh. So that's the message over here. The entire Jewish religion stands on Akarat HaTov. gratitude and appreciation. The Mitzrayim were the opposite of that. Instead of expressing gratitude to the Jewish people for saving Egypt from famine, they gave us the other way.
But isn't that in history?
What?
That's in history, all throughout history.
All throughout history, right? Ingratitude. Nachon? Then the Torah goes on and tells us in chapter 2, a man went from the house of Levi and he married a daughter of Levi. Very strange. Exodus 2:1. A man went from the house of Levi and married a daughter of Levi. Who's the man that went from the house of Levi? Amram. And he married Yocheved. So this is the most, the chief rabbi and the Rebbitzin of Israel. How come the Torah doesn't identify who they are? Why are they anonymous? A man went from the house of Levi, married a daughter of Mazel Tov, right? This is the chief rabbi and Rebbitzin, Amram and Yocheved, the father of holy Moses. Why didn't you even mention their name? Isn't that strange, Golda? What's the message? What's the message? Moshe Rabbeinu, the Av HaNeviim, the lawgiver, the Redeemer, brought us the man, split the Red Sea. The Torah testifies he was the most humble man on the face of the earth. Where do you learn humility? In romper room. If you have parents like Amram and Yocheved, they didn't even want their name mentioned. I'm the chief rabbi, she's the chief rebbitzin. Don't make a big deal about me. Don't even mention my name. He learned the quality of humility from his parents. I want to remain anonymous. Don't make a big deal about me. Vayelech ish mebeit Levi, vayikach et bat Levi. There Moshe Rabbeinu learned his what? His midah of what? Of what? Of humility. Now, why were they zoiche to have such a son? Amram and Yocheved. Why did they merit to have Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest human being that ever lived? What did they do to merit him? Humility? But I think it's more than that. What's in a name? The Jewish people were being degraded in Memtesh Shari Tuma, slavery, backbreaking work. Remember the movie? The book is better. Yet Amram was called, what does Amram mean? Exalted nation. What kind of exalted nation? You're the dregs of society. You're being beaten down to the ground.
Who is his father?
Amram. What does Amram mean? Exalted nation. Yocheved. What does Yocheved mean? All glory to God. All glory to God. You're the most despised, enslaved, hated nation. All glory to God. If you can have parents that have a name, Amram and Yocheved, never give up hope, even though it looks bad. But God promised me that there will be a redemption. Exodus 2, verse 1, Avi. If you can have parents that have a name like Amram, exalted nation, and Yocheved, all glory to God, despite the degradation of Egyptian slavery, if you can call yourself those names, you deserve a son like Moshe Rabbeinu. That despite the degradation and slavery, HaKadosh Baruch Hu never will abandon us. That's reflected in their names. Amram, exalted nation, and Yocheved, all glory to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they put baby Moshe in the basket, right? They put baby Moshe in the basket. And who saves him? Who saves him?
Miriam.
Bas Paroi, the pagan princess, saves him. Very strange. It looks like God has a sense of humor, right? The father said, kill all Jewish babies. And the daughter saves Moshe Rabbeinu and brings him up in the palace, Prince of Egypt. You don't think that's a little strange? He's brought up in the very house of Stalin. I mean, of the dictator, Paroi. Looks like God has a sense of humor over here. So she saves his life, and she gives him a name, Moshe. Now, the Medrash tells us that even though the Jews were in the 49 levels of Tumah, one of the reasons that we got redeemed, we didn't change our Hebrew name. Shmuel didn't become Sammy, and Reuven didn't become Rabbi or Bobby. Right? We kept, and Levi didn't become Louis. We kept our Hebrew name. Isn't it strange, Professor, that the greatest Jew of all time, who's that? Moshe? He didn't keep his Hebrew name. What was his Hebrew name, Abraham? What was his Hebrew name? The Torah tells us in Exodus 2, verse 2, that his Hebrew name was Tov. And the Gemara says, Tov Tuvia. If I was a rich man. His Hebrew name at the bris was Tuvia. What does Tuvia mean? God is all good. So how come the greatest Jew of all time, all the other Jews kept their Hebrew names, and he, for some strange reason, goes by his Goyish Egyptian name? Isn't that strange? He had a Hebrew name, Toiva Tuvia. And God never calls him by his Hebrew name. God only calls him by his Goyish name. Isn't that bizarre? The greatest Jew of all time? Never is he once called Tuvia Tov. God only calls him by his Mitzri Goyish name, Avramadu Avalama. You don't think that? And what's the message? Gemara Sotah, page 12 says, Hakora Tatov. Who saved baby Moses? The pagan princess. So God expresses gratitude to her by calling Moses not by his Hebrew name Tova Tuvia, but dafke by his Goyish Mitzri name, to express gratitude forever to the pagan princess who saved Moshe Rabbeinu's life. If it wasn't for her, no Redeemer and no lawgiver. So God's eternally grateful for her. So Moshe is never called by his Hebrew name Tov or Tuvia, but only by his Goyish. Look how far Hakora Tatov, expressing gratitude and appreciation, goes. In fact, according to Beinu B'chai and the Sefer Chinuch, the entire Jewish religion stands on the pillar of what? Hakora Tatov, expressing gratitude. When someone does you good, to express gratitude. The Mitzrim, the opposite of that. The Arab mentality. The more we do for them, the more they hate us. That's Kofu Toiv. That's the Mitzri Arab mentality. The opposite of expressing gratitude is to ingratitude. Have you mind closing the door? Powerful message of current events in the Haftorah. In the Torah, in the Parsha. Arabs have a right to vote in the Middle East. The only country where the Arabs have a right to vote, which country, Avram? Israel. They have no right to vote in Jordan or Mitzrayim. It's all dictatorship. The most freedom the Arabs have is in the state of Israel. How do they repay us? With rockets and terror and stabbing attacks. That's the Mitzri mentality. Current events in the Parsha. Who do you want to please? Who are you making concessions to? Who are you trying to appease? I can't stop hating you. If only our fearless leaders, Yosef, would read the Parsha of the week. Trying to appease and make concessions to Abu Mamzer. He'll just hate you more for it, because that's the mentality. All our problems could be solved if our leaders would only learn the Parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu grows up in the palace, the prince of Egypt. He grows up in the palace. If you look at Exodus 2, Avram, you have a book? Pasuk 11. Exodus 2, verse 10 says the boy grew up. Vayigdal hayelet, the boy grew up. Then again, who's the boy? Moses. And then in Exodus 2:11, it says Vayigdal Moshe, Moshe became big. It already says the verse before he became big. So why repeat again he became big, Avram? You hear the question that Rashi asked?
Yeah.
So Rashi says, the first time he became big, he's a tall boy. The second time he became great. How did he become great? By Yetzel Echav. Rashi says, even though he grew up as a prince of Egypt in the lap of luxury, he had everything. The Torah says he went out into the slime pits. Remember the movie? That part I got right. He left the palace and all the luxury, and he went into the slime pits. Rashi says he identified with the pain of his people. That's how you become great. You don't turn your back on your people. Even though you're a prince in Egypt, he went out and he suffered with them. He identified with their pain and suffering. That's how you become great. Says Rashi, that's a sign of greatness. Isn't that incredible? Current events in the Parsha. We have BDS and Breaking the Silence and J Street and Jews for Palestine. Golda, what's kind of psychosis? Does any other, is there Jewish voices for peace? Is there Arab voices for peace? How come there's no J Street in Ramallah? How come there's no Jewish voices for peace in Gaza? Or Arab voices for peace? What is this psychosis that we have? This self-hatred. Rashi says it's unique. In this week's Parsha, Dasan the Aviram, the original J Streeters, how do you say, Dathan Aviram? Those original turncoats, they rebuke Moses. Why did you kill an innocent Mitzri for? Why did you defend yourself? You're killing innocent terrorists. So their heart bled not for the Jewish victims. Who did their heart bleed for? The Mitzri terrorist. Exodus 2, verse 13. Hello, current events? Soloveitchik said something incredible. Why do we have to know their ugly, self-hating statements of Dasan v'Aviram? How they betrayed their own people and actively supported the enemy. Why do we have to know that for? We know the Torah is GPS. How do you say that in English? God's personal system. So Rav Soloveitchik said 60 years ago, did he have Ruach HaKodesh? That the Dasan, he called it the Dasan v'Aviram syndrome. How do you say that in English? The Dasan, the J Streeters, Jews for Palestine, and Breaking the Silence. That is a Jewish psychosis that will haunt Israel throughout the centuries. It's not a one-time phenomenon, said the great Rav Soloveitchik. We suffer from this syndrome of self-hatred. He called it the Jewish psychosis, where we join the enemy against our own people. Exodus 2, verse 13.
Well, why is that?
1 minute. So the Torah writes about it, because the Torah is not history. The Torah, obviously, GPS, God's personal system. So Rav Soloveitchik, we have to be aware that there is this Jewish psychosis. It didn't stop the first redemption in Mitzrayim, right? Besides the Dasan v'Avirams, the local Breaking the Silence guys, the local J Streeters, didn't stop the first redemption, and it won't stop the final redemption. We're on the way, despite BDS, B'Tselem, Breaking the Silence, Jews for Palestine. The modern day Dasan v'Aviram, it will not stop the final Gula. How do we know, Professor? We have the roadmap. It didn't stop the first redemption from Mitzrayim, despite the J Streeters then, and it will not stop the final redemption. But we have to know that there is this Jewish psychosis, that we, join the enemy. And Rashi says something incredible. Moshe Rabbeinu wondered. Rashi says in Exodus 2:14, Moshe wondered, why do the Jewish people suffer more than any other nation? Are we worse than all the nations? Surely. Moshe Rabbeinu wondered. And then he said, when he saw Dasan v'Aviram, J Street, and Jews for Palestine, he said, now I know why the Jewish people suffer more than any other nation. No other nation has this self-hatred psychosis where they actively identify with the enemy against their own people. It's a Jewish phenomenon. I don't know why, but it exists. And Moshe says that's why we suffer more than any other nation. Rabbis for human rights, sick. They march with the Arabs against their own people. It's mamish last week, Dosan ve'aviram, right? Moshe killed a Mitzri terrorist. Their sympathy goes out not to the victims, but to whom? To the Mitzri terrorist. Last week, 2 weeks ago, there was this group of bar mitzvah boys hiking in a cave, and the Arabs began to stone them. You hear this? To stone them. So one of the fathers, Baruch Hashem, had a gun, and he shot one of the terrorists. Otherwise, they would have been stoned to death. You hear this, Golda? So the rabbis of human rights, with who did they identify with? Who did they march for? For the victims about to be stoned? No, for the dead terrorists. Mamish from Nocham Dosam Aviram, current events in the Parsha. Rabbis for human rights. Rights of the terrorists, but not the rights of the Jewish victim. This psychosis exists only by us, says Rashi. And therefore Moshe said, we suffer so much. But it will not stop the final redemption, because we have the roadmap. What's the roadmap? The Exodus from Egypt. Right? Hang in there. We have to know.
So the Dasan and Abiram, these are
the original J Streeters.
Okay, so is what's happening to them going to happen to the new J Streeters?
Well, what happened to them? Remember they went down to the pit?
They went down to the pit.
Down to the pit with Korach, remember? They got what's coming to them. Okay? During the Russian Revolution, Gershom, the worst persecutors who declared war on Judaism were the Jewish KGB agents. It's called Exvexia. You can Google it. The worst persecutors of Jews were fellow Jews who were the heads of the KGB. Then there was called something NKVD.
I read that.
NKVD. This Jewish sickness. Jews declared war on fellow Jews.
And then they would kill themselves.
That's right.
They would kill themselves.
But this is this Jewish psychosis, Avi. I don't know how to explain it. And therefore we suffer.
You say it started with Korah?
It started with Dasan v'Aviram, Exodus 2. We read this week's Parsha. They rebuke Moses and they snitch on Moses. They went to Paroi. Moses killed an innocent terrorist. Can't have to have mercy on terrorists. Forget the Jewish victims. That's breaking the silence. Jewish voices for peace. Identify with the Arab terrorists, but not with their Jewish victims. Unfortunately. So Moshe Rabbeinu gets a vision, the burning bush. He sees the Shekhinah in the burning bush. All right? There's something very strange there. He sees the sight. A burning bush should be consumed in a minute. It keeps burn, baby, burn, and it what? It doesn't get burned up. So Moshe makes a strange statement. Look at Exodus 3. Exodus 3. Pasuk 3. Moshe says, I will turn away to see this great sight. How come the bush doesn't get burned up? Does that make sense to you? It says in Exodus 3:3, Moshe said, I will turn away to see the great sight. If you want to see a great sight, what do you turn away for? You should say, I'll come close. How come Moshe says, I'll turn away to see the great sight? And what do I care what he did? The Torah is GPS, Avram. Says the Talmud, Ein balnes makir et niso. When you admire a beautiful painting, do you have your nose pressed against the painting? Why not? If you want to see a marvelous sight, Avi, what do you have to do? You have to back up to take it all in. Moshe was teaching us. We have so many miracles happening to us. 2 weeks ago or less, a rocket fell directly on a kindergarten in Sderot. During kindergarten now, a direct hit on a kindergarten in Sderot. Less than 2 weeks ago. You won't read this. The New York Times won't write this. Our peace partners shot a rocket in the they shoot at kindergartens, not at army bases. They're heroes. Avram, direct hit on the kindergarten in Sderot, and not one child was injured. And you have miracles like this, but we're too involved. We have our nose, pressed against what? The glass. You have to appreciate, you have to move back, Elisheva. To appreciate the miracles that happens here day by day. Back up, Moshe says. To take in the great miracle, you have to what? Back up. So what does God tell him? Pasuk 5. Exodus 3:5. God says, take off your shoes from your feet, because the place where you are standing is what? Holy ground. Why is it a holy ground? Somewhere in the middle of Sinai Desert. Why is it a holy ground? But Hashem is all over. Why is the burning bush called a holy ground? Isn't God all over, Professor? What's so special about the burning bush that God says, take off your shoes, it's holy ground? So Rashi says, how come it was a thorn bush? Why not a cherry tree or a blueberry bush? Why did God appear in a thorn bush? No. Says Rashi, there's a pasuk in Tehillim 91, Imoy anoichi batzara. When the Jewish people suffer, who suffers with them? God. To prove that, God did not appear in a cherry bush or a blueberry bush, in a thorn that cuts and pricks. Psalm 91, God says, I suffer along with the Jewish people. Where was God in Auschwitz? In the gas chamber. Psalm 91 says that. God suffers with his people. To prove that, he appeared to Moses in a thorn bush, which cuts and pricks. So why is that holy? Says the Chafetz Chaim. You sitting down, Rabbi Avraham? When we have hard times in life and we suffer, and who doesn't? That's holy. Whenever a Jew suffers in life, and who doesn't? That's a holy moment. That's where God is. Hear the Chafetz Chaim HaKadosh Rabbi Yosef? Who doesn't suffer? That magic moment. Because God is suffering in the thorn bush, because the Jewish people are suffering, therefore it's a holy place. Says the Chafetz Chaim. When we suffer and we realize it's God there with us suffering, that becomes a holy place. That's the attitude of a Jew towards suffering. He's never alone. God suffers with him. Now, why does that happen? You know, when a father spanks a child, right? What does he say? This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, right? Where does that expression come from? You hear the expression? This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. Where did it come from? He's our parent. And sometimes he has to show tough love. So when he shows tough love, he has to say, this hurts me more than you, but I got to do it because I don't want you to self-destruct. You know what tough love is, right? Tough love. I love you too much to let you destroy yourself. So to save your godly soul, I got to put us through it. I got to put us through it to save your godly soul. To rehabilitate you for eternity. To be part of me forever. We got to go through this pain. We got to go through this pain. Who's the we? Me and you and me. When you realize that, that's the ultimate Kedusha, says the Chafetz Chaim HaKadosh. When you realize that. Now, God says, Exodus 3, verse 8. I bring them to a good land. See that? Exodus 3, verse 8. To a land flowing with milk and honey. Right, Golda? Over and over again, God praises Ashkelon. Pisgat Zev. Rechavia. A land flowing with milk dozens of times, Reb Nachum. Now, I don't know about you, but I like grapefruits and oranges better than honey and milk. The grapefruits and oranges are great, though. You ever eat a Yafa orange? A grapefruit, avocado? Look at Machte Yehuda. Why does God insist on praising Israel for milk and honey? Genug. But over and over again, what's wrong with an avocado? A delicious eshkoliot, bursting with flavor. How do you say eshkoliot in English? Grapefruit. Oranges. What am I, chopped liver? Chopped liver is pretty good here too. What's so special about milk and honey? If you don't fasten your seatbelts for this, you'll fall off your chair. Now remember, this was said by God 3,329 years ago, before there was Google or Google, what's it called? Google? Google. You go to Google, you can check it out. The Israeli cow gives more milk per cow than any cow on the planet. I'll repeat that, you can Google it. The Israeli cow gives more milk per cow than any cow on the planet. So therefore God insists on praising milk. There's no milky cow like Israeli cow. You know, cow goes moo. How does a Jewish cow go? No. Get it? No. Well, that's pretty funny. What about honey? Avram. The date honey trees in Israel, the date palm trees, give more dates per tree than any date palm on the planet. How did God know this without Google? So therefore he praises milk and honey. Because oranges and grapefruits and avocados, they're maybe more abundant in different countries. But milk and honey, Israel is tops. More date palm trees, more dates per tree, honey per date and per tree, and more milk per cow than any cow. And therefore God uses those praises only.
Yeah, I have it over here.
Oh, thank you.
It says the land of milk, Israel's super cows are the most productive. And it says Israel cows lead the world in milk production.
Oh, thank you. How did God know that?
Why?
Because he said so. 3,329 years ago. And the Jewish cow goes moo, not
Israeli
moo.
cows are taking over the world.
Now, isn't that incredible? That's why not grapefruits or oranges. That's pretty incredible, right, Avram? You with me on this? You're with me on this, right? It's just amazing, huh?
I don't trust them.
Just amazing. Just amazing, right?
Beautiful.
Talk about gratitude and appreciation. Remember we said, God tells Moses, pronto, pack your bags and go to Cairo. Let my people go. He doesn't do it, Professor. He first goes to Yisro to ask permission. Can I go to Egypt? What are you talking about, Moses? The boss just told you, pack your bags and go to Cairo, let my people go. The Pasuk tells us in Exodus 4, verse 18, first he goes to his father-in-law. He says, listen, Dad, can I go to Egypt? When his dad said, yes, the father-in-law, now you can go. What are you talking about, Moses? Rashi wonders, you need permission from your father-in-law? The boss said go. So Rashi says something incredible. When he was on the lam, remember he was a fugitive from Egypt? Professor, the KGB were looking for him. Who took him in? Yisro. Yisro took him in and protected him from the KGB of Egypt. Protected him, gave him a wife, gave him a job. He owed Yisro, Avraham, a tremendous debt of gratitude.
Didn't he make an oath?
He made an oath.
Why did you put him?
He owed a tremendous debt of gratitude. So even if God said go to Egypt, he couldn't go unless he got permission from the man that did so much for him, who saved him from the Egyptian agents who gave him a wife and a job. So Hakorat Hatov, that trumps even God's command? Do I dare say? Rashi says it. Good thing Yisro said go. If Yisro would have said no, what would have happened, Professor? God left it. Well, got to go plan B. Got to find myself another redeemer. Look how far menschlichkeit, decency, Hakorat Hatov, gratitude and appreciation. That comes before the Torah. It trumps. Derech Eretz Kadmon LaTorah. Powerful Rashi over here. Powerful Rashi. Now, the end of the Parsha, Moshe goes to Mitzrayim with the message. Do things get better? They get worse. They get worse. Why do they get worse? The Zohar says that this is the roadmap of final Gula. Looks like you're on the road. Moshe came, let my people go, God told me. But things got worse before they got better. So the Zohar says this will be the final redemption, will be the same way. We have the wonderful state of Israel, the beginning of the redemption. And all the miracles of the 6-day war, Yom Kippur war. It looks like everything was what? On the road to redemption. Pitom you have Nebuch, the expulsion from Gaza. 10,000 Jews thrown out of their homes, made homeless. Terrorism and rocket attacks. What happened? We're on the road to redemption. Yom Kippur War, Mechem Shichrur, and all the wars. So Zohar says, don't be nervous. This is the way it is. It's a long and bumpy road. But surely don't fret, because we have the roadmap. The roadmap is the first redemption. Many bumps on the road until we got to Pisgat Zev. But we got there. Despite all the setbacks, the final redemption, says the Zohar, will be the same way. We're on the road. Wonderful state of Israel. Miracles, and there were many setbacks. Expulsion, Jews kicked out of their homes. 10,000 Jews made homeless. And the terrorism. Don't be discouraged, Avi, because it's following the final roadmap. It's following the first roadmap. The Exodus from Egypt is the roadmap for the final redemption as well. So things get worse. Moshe Rabbeinu makes an amazing statement. I wonder if the English got that right, Golda. Look at Exodus 5, verse 22. Exodus 5, verse 22. Moshe, God sent him. Looks like he failed. He struck out. He returns to God, and what does he say? Exodus 5:20. Maftir.
My Lord, why have you done evil to this people?
Hear
Why
that?
have you sent me?
Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Abraham Berkowitz, you asked me this question. Abraham, that's the way a Navi talks? Not just any Navi, Professor. This is the greatest prophet that ever going to live. He says, God, why have you done evil to the people? Hey, what are you questioning me? I'm the big boss. Take a pill and lie down. Does God fire him?
No.
I think he got a raise. But how dare he say that? Avram Berkowitz asked me, what about Gamzula Tova? How do you say that in English? Gamzula Tova.
All for the best.
It's all for the best. Moses didn't know that. Whatever God does is all for the best. How dare you say, God, why have you done evil to the people? Reb Nachum, what about Gamzula Tova? You forget, Moses forget that? Your son will like this. You tell this to Zalman, he'll like this Vort. This is a Vort from Vortland. Rabbi Kiva knew Gamzula Tova. I think Moshe Rabbeinu is bigger than Rabbi Kiva, no? Moshe Rabbeinu, the Navi. So if Rabbi Kiva knew Gamzula Tova, everything that happens is for the best. How come Moses questions God? Avram, you asked me this question, right? What's the answer? Take out a notebook. What is Moshe Rabbeinu teaching me? When do you say Gamzula Tova? When Lo Yaleinu, the suffering is happening to the person himself. Person himself, Lo Yaleinu, is suffering. He's supposed to say Gamzula Tova. It's all for the best. Shevet Levi was not in the slime pits. Remember, Avram? The Levites were not enslaved. They weren't suffering. Moshe's tribe was not suffering. You saw he come and go as he wants. For some reason, the clergy were exempt, the Levites. When you're okay and a fellow Jew is suffering, Professor, you say Gamzul Tova? Then you complain, God, what are you doing to your people? What a message. When the person himself is suffering, Lo Yaleinu, you're supposed to say it's all for the best. But if you're okay, Moshe and the Levites were okay, but other Jews are suffering, what do you say then, Abraham? Lama Reisha Lama Zeh. Why you've done evil to the people, God? Then you don't say Gamzul Tova. Hope you're writing this down. We asked me this question earlier today. That's the message. When to say Gamzul Tova for yourself, but another Jew is suffering, then you complain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as Moshe did over here. Because what made him great? Because he felt the pain of another Jew. Torah defines greatness. Moshe became great when he went out and saw their suffering. And Rashi says, right, when he got into the slime pits with them, Prince of Egypt, what are you, nuts? You're leaving the lap of luxury and going into the slime pits? The movie got that part right. That's a sign of greatness. If you can feel a pain of another Jew when you're okay, you deserve to be the leader of the Jewish people. And that's a sign of true greatness that the Torah points out.